Good evening, and welcome once again to the Shadow Gallery. I am, as always, your host, James Donnelly. And it's Monday night, so you know what time it is. It's time for new comics, bitches! And we've got a lot to cover, so let's get on with it. I promise you, I'm going to try and really not have this go into like epic overtime. Okay, but there's a lot of stuff to go over and an interesting conversation that I want to have at the end. I might do that separately though. Okay, so we'll come to that. Okay, so first book we're going to talk about is Avengers versus X-Men number 6. Now again, I haven't been buying the kind of AVX Kool-Aid that Marvel is selling right now. However, I will say that this issue has been the best of them so far, but that's not saying a whole lot. Because basically what we've got here is that, you know, the kind of Phoenix Force 5, my nod to Pulp Fiction there, is they basically have come in and they have said, okay, you know, they're going to build up, you know, desolate areas, and they're going to make, basically they're going to make the world, they're going to make the Earth a better place, where there'll be no more war, there'll be no more famine, there'll be no more this, there'll be no more that. And, of course, you know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And then we have Iron Fist basically still being kind of ponied out as being like he's or just Iron Fist is somehow the key to all of this, to defeating or harnessing the Phoenix Force. We've got you know, we've got the, you know, of course, you know, the, you know, even despite all their great power and their, you know, their talk and their actual performance of doing these very benevolent things, the Avengers still very much look at these guys as being a threat. So they come to get Hope, and as before, kind of a fight between, you know, Thor and Cap and Iron Man, and just Cyclops is, you know, he doesn't even need to use his visor anymore, but he still has it on. You know, Professor X is now actually there, and he's kind of questioning the wisdom of everything that's going on that the X-Men are doing, or at least the Phoenix Force 5, as I'll call them. And boom comes the Scarlet Witch, and she is perhaps another key to everything that's going on. So, and at the very end, Scott says, you know, no matter what we do, they are always going to be against us. You know, not even just humans, but the Avengers. They will always be against us. So, no more Avengers. That's how Scott leaves it, and that's how the issue itself is left. This is the best issue so far for 2 reasons. One of them is that Hickman actually has some strong storytelling here. It's not very strong. It's not like up to kind of Hickman's standards, but it is still really, it's a pretty well written issue. The ideas in it are better than what I had expected that would come out of this. So I guess by that merit, maybe I'm giving it perhaps more praise than it actually deserves. The other thing that's better here is that John Romita Jr. is off of art, thank God, and Olivier Coipel is back on, is on art. I've been a fan of Coipel's art for a while now. I think since House of M. So now this kind of, you know, I like one of the other things I do like is how it's kind of branching all of these, a lot of these event comics together. Because this isn't quite like Civil War, but it is a little bit. It's not as kind of mundane of an idea as Civil War. It's a much more high concept idea. But that's one of the reasons I actually prefer Civil War to something like this, and why I actually think that Civil War is probably the best like event comic in a long time, especially from Marvel anyway. And just his art's much smoother, much cleaner. It feels much more polished, and I just like the kind of presentation of certain ideas here. So I give this a 3.5 out of 5. Like I said, it's a decent issue. So, and like I said, I'm reading it because it's free. Because I'm getting the download codes from somebody else. So a lot of this AVX stuff I'm just reading for free, because a lot of it is kind of trite. Most of it is kind of trite. So moving on now. So we have Avenging Spider-Man number 8. So this is the epilogue to Ends of the Earth. Now Ty Templeton co-wrote this with Dan Slott. It's basically about a day in an adventure with Silver Sable and Doc Strange that Peter is revisiting, because obviously it's Silver Sable that has died, apparently, because although they're searching for her body, but they haven't found it yet. So searching in the ocean, and so there's like so it's like this whole story about how Silver Sable kind of risked everything, kind of like going out up against Doctor Doom and all this stuff to save an innocent prince, innocent Symkarian princess from having to be married to Doctor Doom. It's a really dull story. If I could think of any way that I would want to honor Silver Sable, I would have invented a much better story. Because this is just, it's very 90s. It's very silly. There isn't really any real substance to this story that Spider-Man is telling. So it makes me wonder, okay, well, what exactly did he see in her at all? If, I get the whole point that, she's kind of a mercenary, and she, used to chase war criminals, but now she just kind of did this thing for, this, for this very kind of beneficent, this kind of, very, the word escapes me, but, it's kind of, pro bono, selfless act, if you will. So yeah, she liked life, she liked love, she liked vintage champagne, and that's who she was. I think that if Dan Slott had written this issue himself, I think he probably could have thought of a better story. And I think because his name is very small next to Ty Templeton's on the page. So the only reason I even read this is because it was the prologue to Ends of the Earth. So I think it's safe to say that Ends of the Earth, as far as an event for Spidey's 50th anniversary, was not a great success. I think that most people agree with that. It was still a solid comic pretty much all the way through, and this epilogue it deserved to be flushed down the toilet, because this is, at best, it's a 2 out of 5. I didn't care for the art, I didn't care for the story. There were some moments that I'm like, okay, this is pretty good, but other than that, it's like total skipper. Secret Avengers number 28. Now this is tying very directly into AVX once again. And we have, basically we have Marvel, the resurrected Marvel, Ms. Marvel, Thor, and Captain Britain basically squaring off against the Phoenix Force. It's basically, there's some kind of intrigue going on within the Marvell family. People who have had the name Marvell on Hala. They've been kind of engineering this whole kind of destruction of Hala, so that somehow that the name of Marvell won't be as it won't be kind of associated with a traitor. So even the resurrection of Marvell was to kind of make him out to be kind of the hero of the Kree people, and not someone who left the Kree people behind in favor of his new human friends. So that kind of all ends in tears. And what's cool here is that Ms. Marvel actually becomes binary. She reaches into kind of a white, whatever, however exactly she does it, and she becomes binary so that she can fight off the Phoenix Force. So that her, like she talks about, because it's her kind of inner monologue that propels this whole issue. And we have, she talks about how her, that human morality basically, all of these things start to fade, because obviously being binary meant that she was once a herald of Galactus, which means that she has to kind of rid her, she had to kind of rid herself of her humanity in order to do that. But it still rejects her, even though Thoris helped out in the best way that he can. And then in my favorite part of the book, and one of my favorite parts of the whole AVX thing so far, is that Captain Britain really steps up to the plate here. And he is actually holding back the Phoenix Force by the strength now of his own confidence. Now, I know that's a strange... when Paul Cornell kind of revamped Captain Britain, when he was doing Captain Britain MI13, which was one of my favorite comic books, with of such a short run, deserved much longer than it got, which is why I'm glad to see Captain Britain again. But that basically his powers are more based on, they're less based on magic and armor and things like that, and more based on the more confident that he is, the more powerful he becomes. So it's kind of like a weird, almost Hulkish type of thing, where the angrier that Hulk gets, the stronger Hulk gets. But in Brian Braddock's case, the more confident he becomes, the more stronger he gets. So, but ultimately, it's Marvell, and because we knew that this was coming. Essentially, he sacrifices his life again to save Hala, and it's it's basically saying and Ms. Marvel kind of finishes up this whole kind of inner monologues, this whole kind of message to Tony Stark, basically by saying that the name of Captain Marvel should be something that we aspire to, and should be a name that lives on, which hence we will have the forthcoming Captain Marvel series, which Carol will be the star of. So I actually really liked this issue. I liked it a lot. I loved the moments. I loved the way that it was paced. I really enjoyed the way that it gave a lot of characters their own moments, which is hard to balance when you have a big team book like this. And the only thing that kind of stops it from being a great book and like a pick of the week is Renato Guedes' art. I just don't like it. It doesn't suit a superhero comic very well. I'm sure that it works elsewhere, but for this, it's too... It just doesn't quite work for me. I don't know how exactly to put it, but it just doesn't really... It's not dynamic enough, It's too human. I guess that's the best way that I could put it. Um, New Avengers, number 28. This was again above average. So I'm sorry, that was kind of a 4 out of 5. Like I said, there's like I said, Ways' art just didn't work. So I would say the very very solid 4 out of 5 for Secret Avengers number 28. New Avengers, I'm just gonna say it's a 3 out of 5. New Avengers 28. It's better than normal. We have Fungi. She kind of bonds with the Phoenix Force because it eventually comes, but it's not. She says that it's not time yet, and so she goes off and apparently, dies. And again, we're kind of tuned in as basically we have Hope is now in Kunlun, and UT and Iron Fist look to, especially UT, kind of look to school her in being, in seeing what the future holds for her. And they look into kind of their, his little scrying bubble here of Master UT, and they see the spider. So, boom, here comes Spider-Man for no reason. Other than, I'm sure that there's a reason. I mean, I know that there is a reason, but it's just like one of those things, because Bendis obviously loves writing Spider-Man, so he will try to throw him in everything that he writes. I mean, he even made Spider-Man one of Moon Knight's kind of, kind of imaginary buddies in that series, just so that he could write more Spider-Man. So I get it, Brian. You really love Spider-Man, okay? But you're not ready to write the Peter Parker 616 Spider-Man, okay? Leave that to Dan Slott, please. You're doing just fine on Ultimate Spider-Man, so leave this Peter Parker alone. Like last week with Spider-Man number 1, it's not a very good issue at all. But this issue does have the added benefit of, again, having wonderful, amazing art by Mike Deodato. And that's, again, one of its saving graces, sadly, that, got to leave it to the art to make up for what it's lacking in storytelling. So again, like I said, 3 out of 5 at best. We're going to backtrack a little. Well, I'm just physically in my pages. Because these are books that are like... No, you know what? I will do that later. I'm going to go into Daredevil, number 14. Now, basically, as we saw in the last issue, in issue 13, which was so awesome, we saw Matt Murdock, Daredevil, get transported after he's kind of taken after he's kind of let the whole Omega Drive incident kind of came to a head there in Times Square. And the Avengers, dressed like members of Black Spectre, come and, kidnap him to use the disc, and of course they're going to destroy it. But we've seen now Dee Dee gets whisked away, teleported away to Latveria. And I love the opening where he's in this, like barely enough to kind of stand and move around. This kind of, almost like a mine. Just barely enough. He's inside a box. Okay, he's inside a rectangular box, and it's clear and it has a couple of holes for air. And I love the way that he kind of figures out where he is. Just by the smell of where he is, and sensing the humidity and everything like that suggests, okay, well, I'm in Europe, and I'm narrowing it down, and uh-oh, shit. And so we have the Latvian Minister of Finance, comes to visit Daredevil and accuses him of economic terrorism because of basically the agreement that Latveria had with the members of Megacrime. And by destroying the Omega Drive and using it against them, he has really thrown these guys into disarray. So now a debt must be paid. They fill up, this container with this container with gas. Matt is entirely sure that it's going to kill him. He's holding his breath. He just can't hold it anymore, and he's got to inhale. So, and then that's the moment when they say, "Okay, you're free. You're free to go." And of course, Matt demands to know, since it didn't kill him, what did the gas do to him? And of course, he assaults the minister. He assaults some guards. And of course, now he has broken pretty much every law in the book that he can, that makes him basically vulnerable to being shot on sight. So he has to escape Latveria. And now this is something that's happened to Daredevil before. What we see going on throughout the course of this book is that he is slowly, or actually rather rapidly, losing his senses one by one. So first, his kind of sense of taste goes. As he bites into an apple that he's stolen off of a cart, he needs some fuel to run on, and it tastes like sawdust. He has no sense of taste anymore. He's as he runs further and further, he starts to lose sensation. Touch is starting to become less and less. And he's getting towards where the place that he can escape to, where he can escape out and into Hungary, or Romania, or whatever. I think it's Hungary. His sense of hearing is starting to go. His arms, legs, all sense of touch is almost completely gone. He's dependent merely on muscle memory and his radar sense. And that goes too. But before we get to talking about the very end, which I'm not going to spoil, and I'm not even going to really talk about that, but we also have to backtrack, because back at home we have Kirsten McDuffie and Foggy having a conversation on the phone about Matt, what's going on with him, where's he been, what's going on. And we have Matt's mystery drawer. What is in it? What's in it? And then we get flashes from Foggy's mind, of Matt's conversation with Foggy about his father and about his father's grave. And when he had to go, when when Mole Man sucked the graves down into his father's grave was one of them, sucked him down into Moleville, or whatever he wants to, whatever it's called, the underworld, whatever. And whatever's in that drawer has something to do with Matt's father, and possibly his body. That would really be creepy. Now I understand. I tend not to read too much into the future of what's going to happen in a book like this, because I don't really want to know. I like to be surprised. I don't like anything spoiled for me, at least as much as is possible. But I'm understanding that there is going to be a huge shakeup in the relationship between Matt and Foggy in upcoming issues. And it's going to change the dynamic possibly of the book. I'll hate to see that happen, because I'm really, really loving what Mark Waid is doing with this book right now. Chris Samnee's art, love it. Can never live without his stuff for very long. The only reason that I give this a 4.5 out of 5 is because I know that this story has been done before. I know that this kind of thing has happened to Daredevil before, but I can guarantee you it's never been done in this dramatic of a fashion, or this smart of a fashion. So that's why I give it 4.5 out of 5. But it really is, it's like right there to being a pick of the week. Another like right there to being a pick of the week is Uncanny X-Men number 14. Very, very surprised by this issue. Wonderfully surprised. They do leave behind the idea of... Sorry. They do leave behind the idea of AVX for a little while. Not leave it behind, but it really is kind of to the back of this book. Basically what this whole issue, very much like the issue that Kieran Gillen did, I think it was like issue 5 or 6 or something like that, where he did the kind of standalone issue where it was the X-Men versus the last, the very last part of the Phalanx. That was that turned out to be actually a really wonderful and very kind of like melancholy read. And this is similar in that same kind of sensibility, that it's taking place away from the X-Men. We're learning about the villains. Basically what we have here is this is an issue about Mr. Sinister. And Mr. Sinister has basically created an entire civilization far, far underground, way far underground. I couldn't, it just says very far below the Earth's surface, and it's called Sinister London. And it's basically kind of like an almost, Victorian era London filled with clones of Mr. Sinister. And it's basically this one clone is coming to meet Mr. Sinister, the Mr. Sinister. And this clone is an anarchist. He's kind of a reporter, but so he's going there under the guise of being a reporter to interview him. But what he's really he's part of a rebellion against Mr. Sinister. And as the issue plays out, you see Sinister's arrogance, you see his absolute defiance, and just knowing that he is so far above everybody else. And then you have the moment in which, boom, the anarchist Sinister kidnaps Mr. Sinister. But it's not Mr. Sinister, because in a land essentially entirely made of clones of Mr. Sinister, how do you tell one from the other? And what Sinister has done is he has actually created clones designed to be anarchists, to basically see if they could break free of their, of kind of their almost, singular thought constraints and form some kind of independent thought and personality. And at least that's what this anarchist thinks. I mean, everything that he's done, this whole engineering of the anarchist, is completely just for his own benefit and for his own kind of entertainment, his own kind of screwed up, demented, fucked in the head entertainment. And it's just one of those things that makes you just really hate him. This whole issue is just a grand tribute to Sinister and his just overwhelming sense of, self-superiority, that he is above and beyond everything else that's on the planet. And he intends upon proving that when, the Phoenix Force 5 comes back, because he's actually created clones of Scott Summers. He's created clones of Victor Creed. He's created clones of Remy LeBeau. That he's actually talking to himself. He's created another clone of himself that he's walking along and talking to as they go through this kind of bizarre parade of all of these clones of, you know, these other mutants. And, you know, at one point, you know, the Remy LeBeau clones, they keep saying machin, you know, but that's like all they say. And, you know, the one Sinister says to, like, the Mr. Sinister, he's saying, well, you know, is he brain damaged? You know, it's like, well, I've always kind of felt that, you know, LeBeau was kind of that way. So, I mean, it's just, you know, again, it's just kind of, you know, sick humor. You know, basically he is saying that he can do what they're trying to do with the Phoenix. He can do it better. That's what this whole issue is about. Now, Dustin Weaver handles the art on this issue. It's fantastic for this type of issue. I'm not sure it would work so well on a regular basis, but for this type of like standalone issue, it's terrific. It's really great art. And Gillen just writes the living shit out of this issue. It is terrific. It's easily my favorite issue of Uncanny since that issue with the Phalanx. It's a very, very solid 4.5 out of 5, close to 5. So now we're going to talk independents. Now, one of them is from last week. Or actually, both of these are from last week, but I wasn't able to read them until this week because my shop didn't get them in. And I'm still actually waiting on my latest issue of Buffy, Season 9. But we've got The Boys, number 67. Now, basically what we have here is that what we've seen thus far in this final arc of this book, that seems to be off to a very slow start, is that Billy is definitely, he is closing all of his accounts. But we don't know why. What is Billy's endgame? That's the thing that I'm dying to find out what exactly he's doing, because, you know, we have, you know, two, not major, but significant characters in the universe die within these first 2 issues of this arc. You know, it has nothing to do with, you know, I mean, because obviously, you know, all the other soups are pretty much gone. You know, we have the Legend acting like a total fucking loon all throughout this book. But, you know, there's all this information that he's sharing with Huey about, you know, about his past and everything like that, and some part of Butcher, you know, some information about Butcher himself, and you know, because basically they're all kind of facing, you know, disbanding, and you know, and the Frenchman and the woman and, you know, Huey and even Billy are all facing forced deportation, and you know, director, you know, Rayner is now the director of the CIA, so she doesn't want any part of this mess anymore. So she's kind of washed her hands of it. And now, so the one person that Huey can turn to in this kind of desperation is to Monkey, and he pulls basically a page out of Billy's book on how to deal with Monkey, because obviously, you know, Huey's always been our voice. He's always been the guy that has come into this, that has been, you know, he's been the outsider, and you know, that's just how it's always been. And you know, so he's the audience, and you know, it's fun to see him kind of step into you know, kind of a more, almost not quite leadership role, but a more aggressive role, because it's been with Huey, it's been mostly things like, okay, well, I've kind of entered you know, all the kind of like, you know, kind of badass things I kind of do not quite by accident, but not quite on purpose. And of course we have MM finally finding out what happened exactly between his ex-wife and his daughter. making that porno together. And finds out that Billy has a lot more to do with the kind of fallout from that than he would have ever expected. So with everything drawing to a close, everything is feeling very sinister. And I don't know what like I said, I don't even know what Ennis's endgame is with this series. And I don't know for the life of me why Derek Robertson is not doing art. Because Russ Braun is doing art. This is a book that they created together. And he's not going to finish out the series in the last arc. That doesn't make any sense to me. But that's just more of a, that has nothing to do with the enjoyment of the book. It's just, I can't understand it. Because they work so brilliantly together on Butcher Baker Candlestick Maker. I mean, that was the best run, I think, of the boys probably ever. At least as far as kind of from a literary standpoint. That's been easily Ennis's most literary work on the boys. Not quite the, it wasn't very satirical. It was just a very kind of straightforward, story. And it was fucking fantastic. But this was still a good book. So Boys number 67 gets 4 out of 5 from me. American Vampire Lord of Nightmares, number 1. Basically what we've got here is we've got the Vassals of the Morning Star. They, we have, and, Agent Hobbs, who has always kind of been there. I don't know how long his lifespan is, but he seems to have been there for quite some time. And basically, he is meeting with this American human. And this human is talking about this thing that the vassals are holding. And he's talking to Agent Hobbs about this. And Agent Hobbs is basically threatening this guy's life pretty much from the get-go. And basically telling this, this kind of very young, bright-eyed kid that they will never get their hands on what they're after. Basically laying down the law. And then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. And, a submarine fires a torpedo at the base of London Bridge, which is apparently where this vampire has been held since 1872. So obviously before the days of the American vampire. And so Hobbs runs to the station where this vampire is being held, and lo and behold, it is absolute chaos. Even the agents have turned against each other. They're killing each other violently, biting each other's heads off, all that kind of shit. Hobbs barely escapes. We then move to this young boy, Augustus, who is in his French class, and he's being kind of snapped at by the teacher there. And he is walking home with his mother. His mother, it's Agent Felicia Book. Well, not really an agent any longer, though. And so it's that point that we realize that this child Augustus, is Cashel O'Donnell's son. The son that was a vampire as a baby. But that book used that serum on to cure him. That was done so beautifully in the final issue of the of Survival of the Fittest, the other side, one of the side miniseries that they did, which was just a fantastic story. I loved that issue. That was one of my favorite single issues of last year. The last issue of Survival of the Fittest. But this they're entering into a whole new realm here. But it's a very old realm. And, you know, because I love the fact that Gus regards Felicia as his mother, because of what she and Cash had together. And I like how, you know, that since she is half vampire, she can, you know, she has certain abilities, and she's half American vampire at that. So, when it is ultimately revealed who the vampire is that escaped, you kind of see it coming. And that's the only reason that this would have been definitely one of last week's books of the week. But not this week's. There's just way too much good shit that came out this week. There's some really awful shit that came out this week, too. But that was... this has definitely been a major, big, huge, and I'm mad at my comic book store for not getting it on time. But that's okay. I can deal. As long as I'm able to read it eventually, then it's all good with me. But the artist on this series is Dustin Nguyen, and his art has never looked better than it does here. Snyder, I am dying to see what he does with this character. Like I said, the only reason that I give this 4.5 out of 5 and not a perfect 5 is because, like I said, I kind of saw the ending coming very early on. There's some little hints, even at the beginning, as to who it will be. So, you know, still, though, fantastic issue. Great stuff. Okay, so moving on to DC, which, thankfully for me, did not have much come out this week. And so the first issue we're going to talk about is Before Watchmen, the Comedian, #1. So this was written by Brian Azzarello and has art by J.G. Jones. Now, so far, 3 issues have come out of the Before Watchmen saga. This is by far the worst. This is agonizingly bad. This is maybe at best a 0.5 out of 5. I mean, I can't even bring myself to give this a full 1. Basically, what we have here is this is just, I mean, from the very first 2 pages, I hated this book. And I didn't want to say, okay, I'm going to keep hating it all the way through, but it never got better. Never. In fact, it kept getting worse. Because basically what we have here is we have an older comedian. He is, you know, the song, The Wanderer, I can't remember who that's by, but it's kind of playing in the background throughout the issue. You know, kind of describe, you know, his, you know, the famous song from the 50s. And how Eddie Blake is kind of like that guy. And, you know, just from that part, I was already like, okay, I'm turned off. But this is an older Eddie Blake. This is not the Minutemen Eddie Blake. This is him in the 60s, in 1963, pretty much to be precise. And what we have here is that in the first couple pages, he's playing football with the Kennedys. He's playing football with Jack and Bobby and Teddy. So basically what we see here is J.G. Jones doing his best kind of Mad Magazine drawings of the Kennedy family. And this almost just grotesque version of Jackie. And, you know, so they're basically, you know, saying, okay, well, these guys, they're great friends. You know, he loves Kennedy. he loves Jack, and he loves Bobby, and he loves Teddy, but he really loves Jack. And but Jackie calls him in, you know, while the others are still playing outside, and it's like, oh, they play hard, and it's like, I wish, you know, that these boys certainly do play hard. And of course, we know that, you know, she starts talking about the peroxide blonde, you know, the peroxide slut that Jack is having an affair with, and basically, Jackie tells Eddie to kill Marilyn Monroe and make it look like a suicide, or at least an accidental overdose. So, disgusting, right there, off the bat, disgusting. I don't mind fucking with history as Alan Moore did it with, you know, the victory in Vietnam and everything like that. But once you start really dicking around with, you know, kind of some of these very specific events that are very much ingrained into the American psyche and everybody's psyche, you're starting to lose me. So, I mean, like I said, it's just gradually getting worse. So Eddie, you know, Eddie's watching a ball game, and he's talking with Jack and with Bobby on the phone, and it's basically, it's like totally like, like bro time, whatever whatever you would call that. It's just, they're totally bros, man. It's like, I mean, it's like they're just big jocks that, it's how they come off. It's like, it's just, it's loaded with, I like the idea of presenting, Kennedy as a normal guy, and I'm sure that he was. But at the same time, this whole personality that Azzarello gives us rings really false. It's basically like, okay, I've co-opted Kennedy's personality and I've injected it with kind of like this, kind of sleazeball, frat boy image. I mean, it's just, it doesn't wear well. And, basically, so the comedian's off to, kind of, help out Jack with some, help Jack out with some stuff and kind of be there for him as he goes to Dallas. But right before all that's about to happen, the FBI, from their, basically from Hoover, the order is given to the comedian to bust up Moloch the Mystic's drug ring, because apparently he's moved beyond prostitution into drugs. And so, the cameras are there, and they're going to give the comedian a great big show and everything like that. And so the comedian, busts into the warehouse. He's kicking the shit out of people left and right. He's, blowing some people away. He gets up to Moloch's office, and Moloch is crying. And why is he crying? He's watching TV. He's crying because Kennedy they've just gotten the news that Kennedy's been assassinated. So basically, there is implied complicitness of, by Azzarello, that Hoover was indeed involved in, at least in this universe, Hoover was involved in the assassination of JFK. And that somehow this death was so humanizing to everyone that Eddie Blake could stand there with his hand on the weeping shoulder of Moloch and kind of comfort him in his time of need, because he's lost such a great friend. The comedian doesn't have friends, okay? Obviously, this is someone who has, this is someone who has really tossed aside the idea of who the comedian is in favor of who he wants the comedian to be in order to write this piece of fan fiction about him. Now, if this had taken place at any other, because this could have been a really wonderful opportunity to give us insight into the comedian's past, other than being the self-serving prick that he was in Alan Moore's work, and and of course what we see him as, in just the couple pages that he's in of Darwin Cook's brilliant The Minutemen, the first issue of The Minutemen. Not quite brilliant, but very, very good. But this is just awful. I mean, it's just terrible. J.G. Jones is totally phoning in his art. There's this one panel where it literally looks like everything is disproportionate. There's one kind of tie-in moment to the original series, in which when he's in Moloch's office and he's learned about the suicide and everything like that, the comedian asks, you got any booze around here? Which is what he says to Moloch when he's in, when he's kind of, crying at Moloch's apartment, in the present day, in the second issue of Watchmen. So, yeah, this is just fucking terrible. It's a fucking terrible issue. I hated it. And I think it should be, I definitely not be picking up any other issues of this. It was horrible. It should be burned. Like I said, 0.5 out of 5. It's one of the worst comic books I've read in a long time. Batwoman number 10. I'm really close to getting off this train. I know that J.H. Williams is coming back on art, so that will keep me buying this book. At the very least, keep me reading it. But the whole structure, the whole narrative structure, is really beginning to bother me. Bouncing around from, okay, here's here's Kate's story, here's Sorrow's story, here's Jacob Kane's story, here's Batwoman's story, here's Cameron Chase's story, here's and this is 2 hours from now, 18 hours previous, 3 hours ago. It's just like, what the fuck? Stop! I appreciate the fact that you're trying to do something different with a different narrative style, but this does not work issue after issue. There's got to be, this is like the archetype of better in trade. This will look great, I'm sure, and probably read a lot better in a trade. But as far as single issues are concerned, it's too fucking confusing. Okay? It's just not working for me anymore. Trevor McCarthy's art is fine. Obviously, like I said, still kind of aping that style. But what I am a fan of in this particular issue are the more human stories. The more, like Maggie's story. Like her calling her child. And, after, again, kind of dealing with the whole kind of weeping woman deaths, the child deaths there. And the moment that, Colonel Kane, that he has to bet while she's still in her coma, and, confessing about, these very, very hard things for him to say, and, about his daughters, and about who he loved more, and it wasn't Kate. That was, those were really strong points of this issue, and I was so sad when they were done. Because they had to move on to the really bizarre shit about, turning, Killer Croc into, like, this, much more powerful beast. It's like, I appreciate, again, to J.H. Williams and W. Hayden Blackman, I really appreciate you trying to do something different. You're definitely distancing yourself really far away from the Bat family with this book, but you don't want to get too far away. You don't want to get too far out there. This is, this is too whacked out for even Batwoman. It shouldn't go this far. So it's just I'm getting tired of it. So this was a 2.5 out of 5 for Batwoman number 10. It's just exhausting to read it. Wonder Woman number 10. Now here we have Brian Azzarello again. And we have art by Kano in the first 10 pages, and then the last 12 pages are done by Tony Akins. This issue, Brian Azzarello kicks major ass, because basically what we have here is, at the end of last issue, great cliffhanger, where we had that, Wonder Woman is basically going to kind of tie her own, lasso of truth around her neck to, to tell the truth about, if she loves Hades or not, in order for them to become wed. And so she does it. And she says that she loves him. Truth. But what, and what Hades wants is not trust, but proof in regards to this marriage. And this is part of the message behind. There's one main message to this, and it's the message of love. And this is why this is probably one of the very strongest issues from a narrative standpoint that this series has had yet. It's just, I love that she basically takes that moment to escape, basically saying that none of this, love, this kind of love that you're looking for cannot be built on proof. It has to be about trust, and I'm not that woman. I'm not the kind of woman that needs proof. I need trust. And so she uses that moment to escape, to try and escape, anyway. And she is chased to the outskirts of town, and there are some wonderful moments again. And so when Hades finally does catch up to her, it is the question of how did you lie? How are you able to lie with the lasso of truth on you? And basically she says, I didn't. I do love you. In fact, I love everyone. And that to me was at the very crux of who Wonder Woman should be. And this is probably one of, as far as the Wonder Woman that I've read, which admittedly is not a lot, but this is like one of the defining moments, defining issues of who Wonder Woman is that she is a force ultimately of love and peace. That's what she was. She was meant to be an ambassador into man's world, spreading a word of love and peace, but to want to bring peace, but to be ready for war. I mean, that is who she is. She's an Amazon, but she is ultimately a force of love. And there is this great meeting between Hephaestus and Eros and Hades, and it's just wonderful. It's just a great issue throughout. And this would definitely, again, be one of my picks of the week if it wasn't kind of really fucked by the last 12 pages of Tony Akins' art. His art in this felt so rushed, so liney, so terrible. It looked bad. It just looked bad. And I feel bad saying it, but it looked bad. Because the first 10 pages, like I said, they're done by the artist Kano, and his work is terrific. I loved it. And then when it changes, and you can really tell when it changes, it's a very abrupt change. But you're so into the narrative of the issue that it's like, well, okay, I see, yes, we have changed artists. It's really recognizable right now, but I'm going to ignore that in favor of, I'm really loving this story. So this is a very solid 4, close to being a 4.5 out of 5, because this should be like a classic issue. And if Cliff Chiang had done this issue, or if Kano had been the artist all the way through, this would have been a perfect issue. So many issues this week, they're just missing that perfect part. It's just that one little edge, or maybe I'm being maybe a little bit more harsh than I normally would be. Might forgive this. Maybe I'm just learning to kind of not be an all or nothing kind of guy. I don't, I've read too many reviews that have been, well, if I don't love it, it sucks. So I have to kind of temper my kind of critical eye, if you will. So, but again, just a fantastic issue. Like I said, very solid 4, leaning towards 4.5 out of 5 for Wonder Woman number 10. Catwoman number 10. So it's all women in the DC universe, at least in the New 52 universe this week for me. And so Catwoman number 10, we have Catwoman kind of returning to basically prostitutes, both male and female, are being yanked off the streets. They're being abducted, and they're not returning. This really presses some buttons for Selina. So Selina kind of goes into kind of returning to what she was when she was under the very watchful and knowing eyes of Ed Brubaker and Darwin Cook. That she was more of kind of a part-time thief, more kind of full-time protector of those who are generally ignored by people like Batman in Gotham City, people like the prostitutes, the junkies, the people who are still people. They don't get a lot of face time in Batman, but this is kind of the perfect book to kind of pick that up with, because she's not the ultimate hero like Batman is. She is a much more street level kind of anti-hero. And that's where this book could use a lot more of that. And it starts off strong in that direction, but then it kind of gets weaker as Spark comes in to kind of save her ass from this maniac with the machine gun, who and she's shooting back at him. So it is she's got a gun. She's not afraid to use it. Miss Spark kind of comes and saves her ass, and she's about to kind of throw herself back into the fray and track this guy down, but then there's this moment in which, she basically says, I was taken and no one helped me. No one came for me. I want to be that person for them. But then this book really starts kind of going off the rails a bit, because she has this kind of romantic interlude at that exact moment with Spark. And I was like, what? Wait, what? Because I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is really this is the time where she should ditch this motherfucker and say, you know what, I gotta catch this guy. I gotta find out what the fuck he's up to. I gotta stop him. It's a horrible human being. I've got to stop him. Got to stop these, my kind of brothers and sisters of the oldest profession there is, from getting ripped off the streets and God knows what being done to them. Of course, once we get to the bad guy's lair, we see what he's up to. He's cleaning these guys up. He's, seems to be some kind of almost, not religious fanatic, but he's very focused on making sure that these people, they have no disease and that they're off drugs and everything like that. And all the time he's talking about the people that he's already done this for, and they're immensely grateful. And of course, what we see are these corpses that are made to look like human dolls, and these are the corpses, of course, of these of these sex workers, these taken in. So he does get them clean, but he also gets them dead. So this is kind of a psycho that we've seen before, if memory serves. And I know that I saw him in a film or even in a TV show. Yeah. There was, I think it was even in an episode of Joss Whedon's Dollhouse, if I'm not terribly mistaken. And of course, this character does happen to be called Dollhouse. But then we have the crooked cops, and we have the cop who is wanting to find Catwoman so they can talk and everything like that. We see that Selina's turning down all of these heist jobs left and right because she wants to kind of get back to what's going on the street, and because they have some money to kind of play around with for a while, because a couple of heists have gone pretty well. And we have her new kind of handler, if you will, her new go-to gal for all the jobs and everything like that. And and it's a well-written book. It's a dense book, which is always nice to find coming out of the New 52. But like I said, I mean, it's just that one moment that is supposed to kind of define who Selina Kyle is. Is a very damaged person, and someone who will fight for these people. It takes all of the air out of the issue and all the momentum out of it. So this is, Winnick just hit the wrong note there. He went for something, and of course, there's a traitor in the midst, and I don't know why I switched to French there, but yeah, I mean, it's just it goes, just the whole tempo, the whole momentum of the issue just falls through the floor by that point in time. So this is a 2.5 out of 5. I liked it more when I was reading it, but when I start thinking about it, I don't care for it as much. Now, we're at that time where I'm going to tell you what my picks of the week are. So I will start that. First, we're going to talk about Winter Soldier #7. This is the Brubaker I love when it comes to his work in the Marvel Universe, I should say. Because it's spies, it's intrigue, it's not totally overt balls-to-the-wall action, although there is balls-to-the-wall action in this particular issue. Because we have the fallout, we have Leonid, awoken, seeing what, after seeing what he's gone through, to find Bucky, and, very sadly, in the last issue, I was actually really kind of broken up about this. Not like weeping or anything like that, but I felt really bad. I thought it was really sad that, that Leonid, he kills Fred Davis, who was Bucky for a time, and who we just saw in the Captain America and Bucky comics. And, I learned in just those couple of issues, I really love this new character. I mean, he's not a new character, but I love the fact that they've kind of brought him into the present. But it seems like they brought him into the present just to kill him. Just to have us like him long enough for him to die. Basically as a message to Bucky. So basically, so we got Bucky and Tasha and Jasper Sitwell. They are following every lead they can, basically following Leonid's trail of bodies. You know, 5 people dead in just a couple weeks. And basically they track him to like an army facility, a government facility, in which he has, you know, he's killed a bunch of people, critically injured a couple of people, and he has kidnapped a doctor. And the doctor, when Tasha gets a good look at him, gets a good look at his picture, so this is, you know, this guy is not an American scientist. This man was a scientist when he worked for the Red Room, which of course is the infamous, the training place where she received her training, where Bucky trained her before, you know, as it points out in the book, before either of them even knew who they were. And, you know, this is getting into some kind of, kind of pseudo-Manchurian candidate, MK Ultra stuff that they talk about with the Red Room. That, you know, it's all about, you know, sensory deprivation and, you know, mind control and, which is basically what did happen to both of these, both Bucky and Natasha. So basically, Leonid lures both of them out into the open by stealing this RV and loading it with armed men. And they're getting intel as they're going, and they've got this motorcycle that they're driving on, and it's like it has like automatic control and everything like that, and it's the nice fun shield tech. And Tasha gets in there, and Bucky eventually gets in there, but some of the readings that they're getting from Sitwell are not quite sounding right. They don't. This is too easy, as they're saying. And what is revealed is that Landon steps out of the back. He's got a machine gun. He's blowing away all of his hired guns, and the driver of this RV, and he jumps out, and Tasha jumps out after him, leaving Bucky to drive this vehicle, because in the back, behind where Leonid came out of, is a massive bomb. And Bucky's got about a minute to get it to this cliff on the highway that they're at, that he can drive it off so that it will explode and not harm anyone. But this issue goes a long way towards reminding us that Bucky has been in a situation where he's been kind of on a bomb before, But the knife is twisted in even further at the very end, when we find out that the person that Leonid set this trap for is not the person that we thought it was. And it's like, oh, thank you, God. Oh, God. Oh, I love cliffhangers. Oh, I love cliffhangers. I love cliffhangers this good. I love Brubaker cliffhangers. Brubaker does great cliffhangers. He hasn't been doing them really a lot lately. And apparently, after a couple of issues, I just learned this, he is going to be gone from Captain America. Cullen Bunn is he's taking over everything of Brubaker's on the Marvel end except for this book, and I thank God for that, because I don't particularly care for what Cullen Bunn's been doing on Captain America and Hawkeye. I've kind of flipped through the issues. They don't do it for me. I don't know what he's going to how he's going to do Cap. One of the things that brought me back to Cap was Brubaker's writing, and of course artists like Steve Epting and Michael Lark, who does the art in this issue, and his art is awesome. I like the way that he draws his people kind of skinny. They're not superhumanly bulky. That was something that not a lot of artists seem to get when it comes to some of these types of comics. This is a much darker. This is not Captain America. I don't think, or this is not like, I don't know, like Spider-Man. I mean, Michael Lark, he's worked on Daredevil. His work has done wonders there. He's worked on some very dark issues of Brubaker's run of Captain America, and even though his Cap has been pretty dark pretty much throughout, But, you know, this is just the this is the shit that I love Brubaker for, and this was a fantastic issue. Very solid 5 out of 5 for for Winter Soldier #7. This was the tough decision. Ghost Critic had the same problem, and I'm having it now. But before that, lest I forget, there is, well, it was a digital comic. But I have it collected here, and I don't give a shit. But I have it collected here in Batman Beyond Unlimited, #5. Which, of course, if you follow this at all, which you should be, because it's really cool. We have, you know, we have Batman Beyond, Justice League Beyond, and Superman Beyond. Not a huge fan of the Superman Beyond. It's written by J.T. Krull. I'm not a huge fan of what he does, but the artwork by Howard Porter is really good. But the main reason that I do read this ultimately is because of Batman Beyond. And what we have here in the Batman Beyond story, the Justice League story, it's an origin story of Warhawk. And that's really interesting how that actually happens. It's kind of a tie-in to, you know, it's like the Rand Thanagar War and everything that happened, you know, a while back. How this was all tied into them, how ultimately John Stewart and Hawkgirl got back together after their kind of falling out, and, you know, how they, you know, essentially gave birth to Warhawk, and how Warhawk came to be a champion of the Thanagarians. The Superman is more about, you know, the daughter of Lex Luthor, and, you know, what, you know, exactly she can do now, and you know, meeting up with Solomon Grundy. Apparently he's still alive, because, you know, he keeps getting born on a Monday, I guess. So anyway, but what my main focus is here, and these stories are good. They're pretty darn good. Not a huge fan of Superman Beyond, but I'm loving the Batman Beyond. Just for this alone, honestly, the Batman Beyond story is worth 5 out of 5. Because it begins with this kind of, this schmo. We don't get a name from him, but he's kind of a down on his luck kind of guy. You know, we know, you know, he's in kind of like the dregs area, you know, kind of the slums of Gotham City, way down below. Because obviously this, in the future, the city is kind of like, you know, the Time Machine with like the Eloys and the Morlocks and everything like that. Not quite to that extent, but definitely the richer meet in a higher plane, and the dregs are on the bottom. But what we've got here is, you know, this guy, he basically starts out talking about that his, you know, in his inner monologue, that his great-granduncle killed 2 people, and that he suspects that he actually killed more, but he said that for whatever reason he could not get, you know, these 2 murders haunted him. And we get, you know, a slice of this guy's life and who he used to be, and this is basically, it's one of the Legends of the Dark Knight tales, but it's not directly one of the Legends of the Dark Knight stories like that we've seen. I haven't gotten the recent ones, so I don't know how they've been. But you know, I just got the first one, the Lindelof Lemire issue, which I thought was great. And, you know, he's just kind of looking for purpose other than, you know, kind of the only exercise that he gets being kind of going between, you know, between his, you know, kind of shitty home and the liquor store. It basically tells the story of how he used to work for Wayne Powers, and he was working for their special security, which was directly under Derek Powers, and his right-hand man, Mr. Fix. Now, those of you who are familiar at all with the Batman Beyond cartoon should know who Mr. Fix is. This is basically the guy that kick-started the, him and Derek Powers are basically the guys that kick-started the whole becoming of Terry McGinnis becoming the future Batman. And this guard basically, he didn't do like wet work, but he understood that people like Powers and people like Mr. Fix, they needed to cut some corners, and he was kind of the guy that helped with the cutting. It's just some roughhousing, some scaring, some intimidating. But then things started to change when they poisoned this one scientist, with this toxin, and of course it's the same toxin that's in the original Batman Beyond episodes. And then we have Mr. McGinnis there. He's witnessing all of these things. And so they come to, this guy, he's part of the squad that Mr. Fix takes to the McGinnis house. And, they're spraying, to make it look like the Jokers, broke in and did what they did. But Mr. Fix-It basically, while they've got, Terry's father there, he goes to this guy's story, who they're talking about. He says, kill him. So this guy ultimately having to pull the trigger on McGinnis' father. So this guy helped create Batman, Terry McGinnis' Batman. And then, of course, it flashes back again to this fight that they're having in the warehouse between, in these first episodes, in the first, hour or hour and a half, I think, of Batman Beyond, those episodes, where it shows his origin story, where, Terry is fighting all of the guards. And this guy, from his point of view, he says, I wanted Batman to punish me for what I'd done. I wanted him to beat me senseless, because I can't, he just couldn't get away from the pain of what he'd done. So now he can't get any work. He's just, he's amongst the dregs right now. And he's very haunted by this murder that he's committed at the behest of, Mr. Fix. So some people, of course, they've broken into his house, and, they're looking to, steal some stuff. They're looking to beat the crap out of him, but he won't take it anymore. This is a man who has an epiphany. He says that the only way that things can get better for me is if I help make things better for other people. And so he decides to open up his cabinet and pull out the old uniform, his old guard uniform, that kind of stormtrooper-esque, helmets, and we see the name that's on his nameplate, on his chest armor. And his last name is Chill. I was waiting for it pretty much the whole issue, but it was like, that's so awesome. I would have never thought to do that. Because, we've had attempts, to kind of tell the story of, kind of the secret story of Batman Beyond before, in the episode epilogue of Justice League Unlimited, which is one of my favorite episodes of that show, in a bunch of really great episodes. And, basically where we see Amanda Waller tried to hire the Phantasm from Batman Mask of the Phantasm to kill the McGinnis parents so that it would help create another Batman. And lo and behold, somebody else from the Chill family tree has done it for I mean, not directly, but of course at the behest of somebody else. But yes, it was his hand most directly involved in the creation of Batman. But to have a chill that looks to make things better for other people, that's something pretty new. And something I'm very excited to see happen more of in later issues. But that was just, I mean, my heart just was like pounding as I was reading this issue. I'm like, just please, you know, I'm loving this narrative, I'm loving the structure, I'm loving seeing the beginnings of Batman Beyond, and, you know, of course, you know, it's, you know, Adam Beechin writing it, it's Norm Breyfogle doing wonderful, amazing art, and then when I finally see that nameplate saying "Chill," I'm just like, perfect. That's the kind of, I just love that feeling, man. I fucking love it when I get to the end of an issue, and I'm just like, this is what I've kind of been waiting for, and yes, you have fulfilled part of, you know, my fantasies of reading this book while reading this book, which is a very difficult thing to do. So, absolute 5 out of 5 for Batman Beyond Unlimited number 5, the print edition. It still would have been 5 out of 5 just for the digital alone. But this is what I was talking about before, the big decision, and that is what's better this week. My runner-up, fuck it. You know what? I'm going to say it's a tie. The Punisher number 12. This is... I mean, I thought that issue 5 was one of the best single issues of this story that but one of my favorite single issues of the Punisher that I've ever read. It proves that Greg Rucka and Marco Checchetto on this title together, they can't fuck up. They will not do wrong. It will be a sight to behold every time these two get in an issue together. I mean, the Omega Effect. How awesome was that? And then this is just, they are taking us to school, man. Because we have this incredible issue. I mean, it is 5+ out of 5. This incredible issue of the Punisher where we learn more about the mindset of the Punisher in these pages of this book, and his mission and his purpose and his focus. In this issue we learn more about that than in any of the kind of longer runs of any of the more mediocre titles that that the Punisher's been featured in throughout the years. Because basically what we have here, we have and that's another thing that's great about this, is every character that's been featured in this comic, with the exception of the bad guys, gets a beat. They get a great character beat, because we have Walter and Ozzy. They're staking out they're staking out Rachel's place, and, you know, thinking that they're gonna, you know, maybe get something. And of course, you know, Rachel lives right by Nora Winters, and Nora Winters is in bed with Phil Urich. Of course, you know, this is carrying over from Spider-Man, so we know that we're in the Marvel Universe again. I mean, that was never in doubt, really, but this was, you know, the Omega Effect was really kind of like the, you know, that was the part where everybody said, okay, yeah, this is, you know, he's definitely part of 616 again. This is not the Max line. This is, you know, this is the Punisher doing what he does. And Rachel comes to visit Nora, you know, in the sneaky, you know, Punisher kind of esque way, but it's not quite so sneaky because she doesn't have the mad skills that Frank Castle does. But she wants some things from her apartment, and Nora kind of goes in to, kind of throw the cops, off this stakeout and everything like that, and she goes up to Rachel's apartment and gets a photo of Rachel and her dead husband. But Frank is there, already in her apartment, and asks the same question over and over: where is she? And she's sitting in a bar. She gets a text. Rachel is sitting in a bar. She gets a text: out back now. And basically, there's Frank with the photo. Stupid. Careless. You need to get your shit squared away, Marine. And begins this terrifically emotional, like this epically emotional fight in this rainstorm, in this alley behind this bar, between Rachel and Frank. And there are two ideologies at odds with each other. One who still believes they can do the mission and have and somewhat cling to a normal semblance of life, to somewhat cling to their past, to cling to the people that they've loved, the people that they've lost, the reason for them doing this. And then we have this opposite force who says, no. You died in that massacre. When your husband was killed, when your love was killed, when all of these people died around you, you died too. You're just a walking around corpse. But you've got a mission. This is the way you need to live your life. That's Frank Castle, right there. He's saying to the world, I'm dead. The only reason I have for living is the fact that I need to exterminate scum. He's got nothing in his heart. He's got no love. He's got no... There's nothing really that human in him anymore, except for his human need to wipe out those who do evil. But it's oddly, it flips a mirror upon Frank, and it says he's going out of his way to demonstrate how you cannot care, how you cannot have attachments. And here he is doing this, telling Rachel this, not because he believes that he will just follow her down the same road. Yeah, that's nice, but he's also doing it because he cares about her. He knows what she's going through, and he knows where she needs to get to in order to do what she needs to do. And so in this very bizarre, roundabout way, Frank is showing that he cares for Rachel. Even if he probably doesn't even know it. That's what I think is so brilliant about this issue, is that it leaves that question kind of hanging in the air like just a little cloud of smoke. You can barely see it, but there is something there, and it's awesome. So like I said, a 5+ out of 5 for the Punisher number 12. Rucka, Cheto, you've done it again. Now, the other awesome, unbelievable, great, brilliant issue of the week, other great pick of the week, of course, Saga number 4. Brian K. Vaughan, Fiona Staples. Magic. There's magic in the book, but their work together is magic. I mean, I have loved, literally loved, every series that Brian K. Vaughan has done. Has he made some missteps in an issue or two here and there? Of course he has. But every series that he's created has been brilliance from start to finish. But this is one of those stories I'm praying will never end. Because what do we see when we're at the very beginning? It's two huge faces or two huge heads, that are the torsos of these bodies, these legs, these fishnet stocking legs, saying, "Welcomes to Sextillion." And we see, of course, the Will and the Lion Cat, or just Lion Cat. And he is being welcomed to the Pleasure Planet. He's not there, he is, they know who he is by reputation. But he is there merely for pleasure. He just wants to get his rocks off. Meanwhile, we have Alana and Isabel and Hazel and Marco, and they finally gotten to a place where it can snow, and so Marco is slowly healing, and the whole time Alana is just seething. Who the fuck is Gwendolyn? And there's, because we can't forget Hazel as a character. Because obviously she's the baby, but she's also the narrator. And that's one of the things, this another one of those narrative devices that Brian K. Vaughan, someone as smart as he is, can employ to do fantastic stuff with. Most other people, this would be a gimmick. But to Vaughan, it's gospel. It has to be there. You cannot have this book exist without Hazel telling her side of the story when she's just an infant. And, we have this brilliant exchange between Isabel and Alana, and then we have, boom, Marco wakes up. And we have them talking about, well, who the fuck is Gwendolyn? And Gwendolyn was only his fiancée, as it turns out, not the, not who we might have thought it was. But this is all incidental. But it's not. And that's what's so awesome about it. Because this would be, in a normal comic, this would be like throwaway dialogue. But Vaughan is so smart and so well-versed in dialogue. He uses the words to its full advantage. He uses communication to his fullest advantage. He doesn't have to fill us up with expositionary dialogue that doesn't seem to fit. That could seem like it's coming out of anybody's mouth. Each character has a very specific voice, and that is made not through the clearness of, well, this person's dialogue bubble is different from that person's dialogue bubble. No. Each character has their own specific personality, their own specific voice, so you know who's talking before before you even see the character that it's supposed to be coming from. You could black out all the characters and you would know, okay, well, this is the character that's saying this at this point in time. That's how smart and how great Vaughan is at creating his characters. Then we go back to Sextillion. And we have him walking around, and there is sex happening everywhere. Now, I promised myself I wasn't going to go this long, but you're right. We are going to have this discussion at a different time. So we're at an hour 40. Just going to leave saying we're going to talk about Saga on its own. So you can come meet me there, but for right now, if you don't want to, I'm saying if you're not reading Saga, what the fuck is wrong with you? Because this is one of the best titles on the shelves right now, and if you're not reading it, you're poorer for it. If you love comic books, if you love great comic books, if you love non-superhero comic books, if you love great entertainment, smart entertainment, something that will keep you coming back for more, you need to be reading Saga. I cannot stress that anymore. So I'm going to have a conversation about this issue elsewhere and some of its other implications, but I'm just going to leave you with saying this is a 5+++ out of 5. No, it's a 5+ out of 5. No, this is really, both Punisher number 12 and Saga number 4 are on the same level, but they're different, and I'll explain why in our next episode. So, and that's coming up next. So if you want to watch this one, please come and watch it. If you don't, just know, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking with me for all this time. You are brave souls, one and all. Been here for an hour and 41 minutes. You probably skipped through some of this. I don't blame you. So let me just say this, and I'll get out of your hair. I love you all. First time here, subscribe, like it, dislike it. Comment, comment, comment. I love comments. I feed on your feedback because that way I can give you feedback of my feedback, of your feedback. So, this is James Donnelly for the Shadow Gallery, reminding you once again, stay in the shadows.